So a term you've probably heard pretty often is the term GitOps, and you're probably wondering what it is, or you've heard about it and you've maybe even used it to an extent. I'd like to introduce you to a tool that makes GitOps easy to implement and easy to understand, and it's called Argo CD. Argo CD is a declarative GitOps tool that's based on Kubernetes. Let's break that down a little bit here. First of all, it's a GitOps tool. And GitOps is all about taking the code that you write, that you commit to a Git repository, whether that be GitHub or Bitbucket, and taking it all the way from the code to a deployment, which is the production server. The declarative part is all about making sure that the deployment and the architecture that you want to have in production is exactly as you want it to be. And so you write down all the specifications of the architecture in stone, so to speak, in a YAML file. And these YAML files describe how the architecture is going to look like. And this ensures that there's consistency between what you're expecting and what's actually on production. And finally, it's based on Kubernetes. So it requires a little bit of understanding about Kubernetes, and we have videos on this channel that can introduce you to it. But the main takeaway from the Kubernetes part is that our code is going to be deployed into little pods, maybe have a back-end pod and a front-end pod, and those are scaled up to meet the user's need based on your specifications in your declarative YAMLs. So I'd like to introduce Argo CD to you and illustrate it to you using a few stories. So let's say we have Rav. Rav is a developer at company ABC. Rav has just decided to take a quick lunch break nap at his laptop, and his cat, Twinkles, has now walked across his keyboard. Twinkles is able to write some code and push it, and because we have GitOps pipeline in place, the code makes it all the way to production. Well, when Rav wakes up to the call of the ops guy trying to figure out what's going on the production server, Rav is able to, in Argo CD, just use something called a rollback. And it'll just roll back the state that's currently on production and just take it back to the last stable state. Pretty nifty, huh? Another person who works at company ABC is John, and John is the ops guy. He's in charge of writing out our declarative GitOps infrastructure. John has just went to get coffee, and as sometimes happens when you walk back into a room, you forget what you were doing. John can just go into the YAML files and read out the whole architecture, read out exactly what we're expecting to see on production, and read what he planned to do. Maybe that'll remind him. And if that doesn't get it, then Argo CD also has in the UI and in the CLI a robust health check system that lets you know the health of your deployment. Maybe an image registry needs a secret that your images are not able to reach. Argo CD shows that in the UI, and you can also query that from the CLI. Finally, let's say at this company also works a guy named Steve. And Steve is a little bit old-fashioned. He doesn't really care about all this automation stuff. And so Steve sort of just shoots from the hip. Let's say Steve gets into our Argo CD deployment, and he just wants to deploy more pods. He deploys 10 more pods than we actually need. But Argo CD has built-in automation, and I'm drawing a robot for that, that will allow the Argo CD to robustly and automatically scale back down the number of pods. That way, the bill at the end of the month from the server isn't huge. I hope these illustrations have given you a little bit of intuition about Argo CD and the underpinning concepts of GitOps. Thanks so much for your time.